Every time somebody steps in front of your camera, you have the opportunity to empower them or exploit them. You need to make that decision before you click that shutter release.
Welcome to the Studio Takeover. I am Kat Ford Coates, your host and mentor. Today, I am here with Donnamaria Jones. Donnamaria, welcome.
Hey. I'm so happy to be here.
I'm so glad you're here. You are literally just one of the most incredible people I know. And I feel so lucky to have you.
Well, I feel honored and privileged to be here. Anytime someone invites you into their space, it is an honor and you should treat it as such. So I'm excited to be here.
Well, where can people find you? Where is your studio? What do you love to shoot? Because you and I always have the most amazing conversations and I'm just like buzzing to get to it.
My studio is in Southern Maryland in Waldorf, which is about 25 miles south of Washington, D.C. The company is Circa Life Images, not Circle of Life. Close to being the same, but Circa Life Images. And I am probably photographing about 80% portraits right now. It's a fairly large studio. And so I'm photographing individuals all the way up to really large groups of people because I have the space. It's 2,500 square feet. The other 20% is mixed between photojournalism and some event photography. I do that just out of the love of the organizations that I have been in a relationship with for a very, very long time. So I still have that part of my photography life that I have no intentions of letting go of. So, yeah.
Before this call, on our last kind of phone conversation earlier this week, we were talking about your life's mission, that you were talking about how everything came from this mission statement that you wrote very young in life. Can you tell us more about that?
Well, I started martial arts training when I was very, very young. And at the age of 8, we had an assignment to think about and write our mission statement, our life mission statement. And the purpose of that was to help us focus. I mean, we're really young. We're in the 3rd grade. Okay.
I can't even imagine.
Yeah.
I'm thinking back to 8-year-old me and I'm like, there is just no way.
Well, so it was a little bit of a challenge for me, but there were some things that I was doing at the time that actually helped me write that mission statement at the age of 8. My mother was working and going to nursing school, and I was helping to take care of my younger siblings. At the time, it was 3 of us, and later it became 5 of us. And, when I came home from school, I was helping at that age my siblings with whatever it is that needed to be done. I was always helping. And so I wrote my mission statement to be only 2 words, and it was to serve. Now, you can't just write your mission statement and expect the sensei to just take it. He wanted you to explain. And so I said those things, and then he wanted to have a chat with me afterwards because this thought it was a very adult-like response to the assignment of writing my mission statement. He also wanted to make sure that I didn't have any assistance in writing my mission statement. And I was like, this is all that I could think of. And as my journey went with my teaching under him, he came to realize that that's exactly what I meant, that it really came from me. So I have maintained that same mission statement until very recently, very, very recently. And I'm happy to share with you why that has changed. But it has helped form my decisions about the things that I have done with my career, with my family and my friends until now. And I'm going to be 61 in April, and I'm still serving. But I'm adding someone to the end of who's receiving that service.
Well, and I'm picturing 8-year-old Donnamaria, right? Like sweet little girl, giant smile, big eyes, like, yes, this is what I'm here to do, right? Like that wisdom that you see in some kids to serve. And I'm an oldest kid also. I have two younger brothers and a stepsister, and she's my age by like 3 weeks younger, something like that. And we had a rule in our house where if anything happened that wasn't supposed to happen, right, with any of the youngers, the youngins, then whoever was oldest was responsible. My brothers, when they were maybe like 2 and 7, decided to drive my dad's van. Like just, from the driveway into this busy intersection. And I had no idea, and because at 7, I was 12. So I wanted nothing to do with them. I was like, y'all go. And my dad came home. And of course, it was a super dangerous situation for the boys to be in, right? Like they're so young. And it was my fault because they put the van into drive and like started rolling down the thing. And it was just this whole, like, that was the story of my life. And as somebody who did not have the mission statement of being in service, I was just constantly like rolling my eyes, like whatever,
I wish I could say that I was the sweet little girl with the big smile. I was not. I was no nonsense, get that shit done, because I'm the mother right now. Okay. And it was so like that because by this time, my mother was a single parent and I did not want her to have to worry about anything when she came home. So it was, these are the marching orders. This is what you're going to do. This is how I'm going to help you, because I would never leave them stranded. I'm always helping them do whatever it is that they need to do. But it was going to be done because when mom came home, she wasn't going to have to do anything but eat her meal, study, shower, and go to bed, because I had already taken care of homework. Mine came last. So, they had to fix their meal, had to help them with their homework, had to get them bathed, get them in the bed. Then I cleaned up and then I did my homework and then I showered and then I went to bed. And this was the routine until I went to college. Until I went to college. And things changed quite a bit then. But I find out now, and actually when I say now, in the last year, my middle brother told me that my siblings were absolutely terrified of me.
Oh.
And I thought he was kidding, but he wasn't. He said, they just did not want to disappoint you. And I was like, oh my goodness, it wasn't about disappointing me. It was about us making sure that we didn't disappoint mom, because I felt responsible. I was the responsible one. So if anything, as you said, didn't go right, it was my responsibility. And when you join the military and you get into the upper echelons of rank, this is how it is. The leader is responsible. The highest ranking person is responsible for whatever happens within their ranks. And that came very easy to me because that's how it was when I was just a little girl. So no, I wasn't sweet.
Okay. So now you were in the military, and how did your life unfold from there?
When you have actually made a decision of what your role is, all the things that happen around you, they either help you or they teach you. So there is no negative. But from the moment I got off of that bus and, they're yelling at you, saying things that they can't say now, and you're dragging this big duffel bag, it's day one, and they're screaming at you. And all I can think of is, okay, I got this, and I'm going to help these young ladies. And this is going to be like the best company and blah, 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 just gung ho. Let's go, let's go, let's go. And that's how my whole military career was, like, just let's go. I quieted it down because I really don't like a lot of attention. And so I found that I've chosen jobs where I could just kind of work in the corner, but it never fails. Someone will see what you're doing and they will pluck you and put you in the limelight. And then I would pluck somebody else to bring up so that I can go and work behind the scenes. But being of service is just, it's been my entire life. All of my different jobs in the military It did turn into a career because I know one of the conversations we had before was the difference between a job and a career, and the big one, the calling. And so I had jobs long before I went in the military. When I went into the military, it became a career. It was a career service woman. It wasn't a career pharmacist. It wasn't a career medic. It wasn't a career commander. I did all of those things at the same time. They were all in service to my family, my neighbors, my community, my country, in that order for me. But in the military, it is the mission first. Every assignment, it was just a different way to serve. I usually got put into situations where things were really messy, and I got a reputation of being the cleanup woman. I didn't like that in the beginning because it had a negative connotation. And then I realized I was the one that was applying a negative connotation because it really didn't matter what anyone else thought. I needed to go there. I was going there to be of service to them. They had a mess that needed to be cleaned up. I wasn't there to chastise anyone. I was there to help them be nice and bright and shiny. And so once I changed my own attitude about why I was getting plucked for all these different jobs, things went much smoother for the most part.
Like that had to be a big piece to overcome, especially when you're internalizing anything in a negative space like that. Our internal narratives are the ones that define us, right? So
yes.
Yeah. Okay. So, well, first of all, thank you for your service.
Absolutely.
My brother's career military and actually has just recently retired after, I think, 24 years. So following the military, then the next transition for you was what?
I retired on one day and I went to work for Department of Defense the next Monday. And actually, I was already doing the job, but volunteering because I couldn't get paid by both. The work was really, really important. The work while I was on active duty, important is not even it doesn't even touch the surface of what it really meant, because literally every day, something that I did personally or we did as a unit saved someone. Every medication that went out, I used to tell them, look, every time a medication goes out that window, you have the opportunity to heal or harm. Just remember that. And if you can remember that, you will go back to your double and your triple and your quadruple check systems to make sure that the right person gets the right medication, at the right time. And so when I retired, that didn't change anything. It was actually an opportunity for me to get to the military physicians before they actually went out to work. So it was an easy transition, but there was no break. I did not take a break. I literally just.
Well, and that's you're in service, right? And following that space, you have a career in the military and then a career with the DoD. Like, did you just wake up one day and you were like, I'm going to be a photographer now?
I was actually in the Army before I was in the Air Force. A lot of people don't know that. I did 10 years in the Army and 18 in the Air Force.
Okay.
The 10 years in the Army was actually broken up between active duty, reserve, and National Guard. So I've been on all three sides of the Army. And I started really honing my skills with photography when I was going through my divorce. And it was just me and two little kids. So I built a dark room in our home and I photographed them every day. And there was a Vietnam photographer who was stationed at Andrews by the time I got to the Air Force. And he taught me how to develop film, and I bought an enlarger, and I was doing all of those things. And so it was really just something it was like my refuge.
Yeah.
The kids would go to bed and then I would go in the dark room. I really loved the magic of that photograph, that print just, revealing itself. And so my life was beautiful, but there was something missing. And every time I pick up the camera, I found that something. I could not put a word to it, but I found that something. And then one day I literally decided, this was in the end of 2011, I just want to do this full time. And I kept saying it, but I wasn't doing anything to make it happen. I was just saying it, but I wasn't taking any action. And then in May of 2012, I was driving past where I'm sitting right now on my way to Walmart. And I saw this big sign over top of this building. These are all auto repair bays that's in this cul-de-sac. And so I called the number. It was on a Saturday. And the gentleman said, well, I'm opening up a restaurant right now. So can I come see you on Monday? And I was like, sure. So I met him on Monday. I walked through here and I was like, I want this so bad, but there is no way. Stop that shit right now. I'll take it.
Yep.
It literally happened like that. I was talking myself out of it and caught myself right when I was just like, no, we're going to do it. You're going to do it. And it took me 18 months of paying lease and utilities before I could physically and legally do work in here because the building is old and it hadn't been brought up to specs as far as the county. That's pretty much the transition in a nutshell. There was a lot of things that happened
I'm sure
on that journey, but that's how I wound up here. That was the same time that I found out about Sue and the rest of the team.
You mentioned earlier that your mission has recently shifted.
Yes.
Tell me more about that.
We all reach a plateau. It doesn't matter what it is that you're doing, what industry you're in. You're just going along. I mean, you're really hoofing it and things are going great. And then boom, just feeling like, blah.
Yeah.
And I've had many of those. And I'm usually just able to pick up, after a short period of time and keep it going. But that hasn't been the case in the last year. And so through some soul searching, a lot of meditation, conversations with like-minded spirits that we share, conversations with you, I realized that I was doing a damn good job of serving everyone else. And I was not serving myself at all.
Yeah.
I just recently had a conversation, when I say recent, like right before the podcast, with someone about the things that we learn and then for some reason we unlearn them. And I was a facilitator for Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Successful People. So that means that I would go out and I would teach this. And there's the sharpen the saw. Oh, was I doing that? No. But then there was, when was I being of service to myself? And the last time I could remember was when I was actually going through my divorce, and photography was what I leaned on. It was serving me.
Yeah.
And I was trying to understand, well, what happened there? Because I love photography. I mean, I love it. What happened? And so when you take something that you truly love and you turn it into a business, and the business piece is not your, is like the fast lane and you're in a hoopty, it's not aligned. There is no alignment there whatsoever. And so I could manage and research and retrieve and accumulate millions of dollars for the military. And I do mean, which is why I climbed ranks so fast. But when it came to the business side for me, I was like, oh, I don't want to deal with that. I just want to photograph people. And so the service to myself piece just went completely out the window. And then it was all about serving everyone else, which is what I had always been doing. And I was leaving myself out. So the one thing I vowed that I never wanted to do was to be a hypocrite. And I'm telling other people, I'm telling other photographers, other artists, my children, other family members, you need to do that thing that you love, and it needs to be for you. And then I literally got hit upside the head and was like, oh, I'm sorry. What are you doing for you? It was all in my face that I was literally drowning in a sea of hypocrisy. And it is the worst feeling. So how do I serve myself with photography? And I just started going over my processes, and I would get to a certain part and I felt a shift in the energy in my body. And I was like, oh, what is that? Because I felt that when I was going over this process, and I started writing it down. And it became very clear. I'm not creating for me. I have gotten to a point where all I'm doing is creating for the client, and I'm not creating for me. And that is a major disconnect. That's where I am not serving myself. Yes.
Well, and I think that's where a lot of us, when we make photo a business, right, we kind of muddy the waters a little bit, because on one hand, your business is a separate entity from who you are, like a child would be, or a sibling, or even a partner. And so I'm going to come back to the money piece in a second, but because it's an extension of you, it's going to respond through your sales to whatever it is that you are going through emotionally. So if you are cookie cutting and not connected, right? Now, if it's literally just a business, like a big box, 1, 2, 3, that's another story. But if you are an artist who is also in business, if you are disconnected in a heart space from your work and where you want it to go and what you want to create, then that's when we start to go down that stale space. I used to look at my work and just be like, just filled with so much self-loathing. It's not as good as I wanted to be. And why doesn't it look the way it feels in my heart when I go to create it? But if I am like blinders up and just trying to get the composition and what are my 5, shooting styles and going through the process and like learning all of the things, it's really easy to fall out of the creative exploration of it. And when you fall out of the creative exploration, that's the disconnect, right? Because you're no longer connected to it. You're connected to doing the things and following the 1, 2, 3. When I say your sales will reflect, right? It's because the money is the value metric that you've placed on it. And because it's a separate entity from who you are, you have to charge money. Pricing is required because a business requires money. And that becomes the value of what it is that you're providing. But like you were saying, you had no problems selling and garnering and commanding 6 figures for the military. But for yourself in your own business, you were like, I don't want to charge money. I just want to shoot. That was a big wake up call for me. If I charge $1,000 for something, I don't keep $1,000 of it. In fact, if I'm in debt, I probably am not keeping any of it.
Right.
But once I realized that the business was a separate entity for me, like it's connected to me and it thrives when I'm in my heart space and creating, and it can kind of mosey along, right? If I'm disconnected. But if I am fully disconnected for a long period of time, my work won't involve, the clients will dry up, the whole 9 yards, because my business will respond to how connected I am to that work and that creation.
And it's interesting that you say connected, and I'm going to come back to that, but I wanted to bring up the fact that I came from a systems-oriented industry. The military is systems-oriented.
It's all systems.
It's all systems. And trying to find the new system, because it's a little bit different than how we do systems or should be doing systems, in this particular industry, but it's still systems oriented. And as I shifted to photography, I was still thinking like I was in the military, and I was not allowing the creative space to be filled. And I don't want that to mean that I wasn't creative in the military, because one of the reasons why I was able to get all of the very exciting jobs that I had was because I would do something very different from someone else or other people. But still being systems oriented and logical all the time, I wasn't expressing myself creatively, because there was somewhere in the back of my head, I was thinking, okay, well, you wouldn't do that if you were, but I'm not there anymore, but you wouldn't do that. And so, my boudoir business just kind of dwindled, because it was, okay, these people are in the military, what if their pictures wind up in such and such and such a place? And so I had all of these little battles going on in my head. So I squashed my own creativity in the beginning. And I found that the more I let it go, not only the better business was, the better I felt. But then it became kind of rote and repetitive. And I'm one of those people, I can be pretty spontaneous and I will get bored. And I'm a resistor. Okay. Like I said that to Sue one time. She just looked at me and she's like, "Mhm, okay." So it's just when I see everybody doing things the same way, before I even try it, I'm like, well, I'm not going to do that because I want to do it my way. And if my way doesn't work, I was like, well, I'm going to try another my way, but I'm not going to do that. And that is the exact opposite of following a system. And I'm just getting to that point where I understand that I still need the systems. They're just different systems. And the system is not going to keep me from being creative. Okay.
No, the system supports it, right?
Yes.
Like the system supports your capacity to be creative. Look, you can be raw creative, being on location and, minimal gear and taking it down to brass tacks. But when we're talking about, especially like client work, having the tools that allow you to layer parts of your recipe to tell a story, that's really what allows you to do it in such a way that surprises, delights, and makes your clients feel like they're quite seen and you were inspired by them and you're creating something really unforgettable with them in a collaborative aspect. So they become part of the system in the process. And when they feel like that, that's really when they can embrace being the subject of a piece of artwork versus 1, 2, 3, cookie cut, go, go, go. And I'm not against having, opposing system. Like, don't get me wrong. I think opposing system is terrific. But at the same time, I want to base that direction off of who they are and how they naturally move in their world so that they can recognize themselves in that imagery.
And I actually feel that is what has been happening the last few years. I've had nothing but very positive experiences. And I try not to call them photo shoots because they really are experiences. My clients don't want to leave. That's a problem for me.
Because I would like to go home.
so, one of the things that I learned while I was in the military was to be a social introvert. I had to be able to lead and command. And in order to do that, you have to understand people. You have to be able to communicate with them. You have to be able to reassure them. I've been to war. And so to come home and then have to send people to war, there really has to be a connection there. Mm-hmm. You want them to come home and you want their families to believe that they're going to be taken care of as best as possible while they're away from home. And so I had to learn, that was a skill that I had to learn. That is not a skill that I was born with because I just like being alone. Crowds of people, they're very draining. I can be there for a while, but when I leave, I leave. Mm-hmm. If I mentally check out, it's time for me to physically check out because when I'm there, I want to be fully present. Yeah. So when my clients are done, they want to hang around because we literally have a good time. And I will say this. I finally figured out why they just want to be here because this is the vault. There's so much that comes out in this studio. I mean, people just,
it's a safe space.
It is a safe space. And I try to make sure that it's always a safe space because I want to see them leave 100 pounds lighter. That's the transformation that I'm looking for at the end of the experience. I want to see them floating out the door, not walking out the door.
Well, it sounds to me like you need an exit system.
Well, I found a way to get them out. It's just that I have to keep doing it. So,
I have to implement the system.
They want to stay. They want to help me clean up, and and I'm very honest. I just say I really appreciate you wanting to help me. It's like, but this is my time. This is the time where I pour a glass of wine. I put on music that you might not want to listen to. And I pick up and everything that I touch immediately takes me back to the moment that we used it during your experience. And I'm reflecting on that. How can I make it better? So I literally tell them these things. So thank you so much. Let me walk you out to your car.
I love that though, because guess what? That's you serving yourself. And, we talked about this podcast episode about it, like you having the realization that shifting the mission statement. But I think it's really just been your growth in realizing that you deserve to fill your cup. Yes. Right. Like photo became that refuge for you, something that was just for you during your divorce. And now you're starting to create boundaries with your customers. Right. And being like, this is my time. Don't you take that away from me. Like, I want my wine. I want to dance. I want to clean up. Right. Like, that's the joy of it. Right. And there are different aspects. Like, yes, of course, we love, hanging the fabric and throwing and dancing with you and photographing you. But there's a part of your process where you're putting your space that belongs to you back into like zero, right? That allows you to relive those moments before you even touch a computer to look at that imagery.
That's right. I always ask myself, okay, so what did you learn today, Donna? Because what I have been finding is every single person that gets in front of my camera, somewhere in that, because it is a transaction, it is a give and take, I learned something about me from every single client. I learned something about me. So it's not just about the person that's in front of the camera. It's also about the person who's photographing them. And when I talk to other photographers, especially the ones that are just like really getting started and they're not really sure which way they want to go, I just tell them, I was like, you need to understand the power that you have. And you need to be responsible. And I always get, what power are you talking about? And I go back to my E2. It's the scientist in me. It's the E2. Every time somebody steps in front of your camera, you have the opportunity to empower them or exploit them. And you need to make a decision. You need to make that decision before you click that shutter release.
Help or harm. What?
You need to understand that. I mean, it's huge with photographers that are covering events. I tell them the same thing. Unless it's intentional, you don't photograph people, and I won't say especially women, but it all depends on who it is, with alcoholic drinks turned up to their head, with food in their mouth, putting a fork in their mouth. That's not empowering at all. They don't want to see that. And that's not newsworthy.
I mean, I love that.
Yeah.
Like, and just breaking it down so simply that way, because it's true. Like, I talk with a lot of photographers about how their connection to photography is because that's how they connect to other people. It gives them a tool to make art. Maybe they don't want to paint. Maybe they don't want to draw. Maybe they don't want to be a mad scientist. I don't know, whatever. But it becomes the tool that allows them to connect with the outside world. But the intention of what it is that you're creating is part of that process. And some people, that's documentary. Every photographer has a voice, a visual voice, and your intention sets that tone of what that voice communicates to the outside world.
And that's probably also why I have such a hard time getting in front of the camera, because I can see through people. I can see right into them. And it's like, well, can someone see into me if I'm in front of the camera? Yeah.
Okay, so we've kind of hinted around your life's mission shifting recently. Yeah. Let's lean into that a little farther.
My new mission statement is to create, because in creation, service is still there, but creating is service to myself. It used to be that I would get these ideas in the oddest of places, standing in line in the grocery store, pumping gas, in the shower. I would just get this idea and I would go, I need to do that. And I wouldn't write it down. And days would go by and weeks would go by and I would do nothing about it. And then I would see someone. There's a woman that works at the bank that I bank at. And I have wanted to photograph her for 6 years. And I haven't asked her. Why can't you ask her? I don't know. She's just absolutely stunning. And so I was like, you got to get over this. So it's been a while since I've been to the bank. But last week, I went to Joann Fabrics. I should own stock in Joann's, by the way.
Oh, tell me about it.
And there was someone new on the register. this young lady, really short cropped hair, just a beautiful, beautiful woman. And the first thing that I thought about was the woman at the bank. And when it was my time to go up, before she could ring up the first thing, I just looked at her and said, I want to photograph you. And she's like, excuse me? And I whipped up my phone and I pulled up my Instagram page and I showed it to her. And she was like, oh, let me follow you on Instagram right now. So when do you want to talk? And I was like, no way, it can't be this easy.
It is that easy.
And I just want to create with her because some of those ideas that I had started popping into my head as soon as I saw her. And I was like, okay, this is it.
Because you're right. Service stays a part of creation, right? And whether that is to other people, whether that is to the service of your art, the creation allows you to contribute, which is service. And that's what I love about art, because even if it's just for you, it allows you to make the world a better place because of it. So it is inherently in service. Yes. Inherently. Oh, ooh, goosebumps. Yes, please.
Sometimes you just need that little spark. I don't know. I don't have problems talking to people, but I think my issue was I wanted to do something for myself, and it was almost like using someone to do that, which that's what I need. I don't want to just photograph myself. There's a certain person, there's a certain look for this idea that's in my head. This is what I want. And I think because I was doing it for myself, it just felt weird because I'm so used to just taking care of everyone else. I'm not going to mention any names, but someone recently said, it's time for you to stop that good girl shit and do some stuff for yourself. And I was so shocked. I read it on the text messages. I was like, oh my God, okay.
I bet I know who it was.
Yeah. And so many things have happened since last week. I don't know. It was just kind of like, it was a block. It was absolutely a creative block. And that creative block was as simple as just asking someone to come and model for you. And boom, all kinds of things have been happening since.
Well, because you're allowing, right? If it's something that you want and you're keeping it at arm's length, right? You're like, I don't have time for this. I can't do this right now. Blah, 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 blah. Anything else that you're trying to bring in will stop there right with it because, well, you said you can't handle anything right now. So we're not going to give you anything until you say you're ready, but you can't just say you're ready. You have to show. And so the showing is like walking up to the person at Joanne Fabrics and asking them to sit for you.
Yeah. Yeah. And she's ready because she's like, so what's the date? What's the time? Where can we have coffee? I was like, oh my goodness. Yeah. So
she would like her design consultation now.
Yeah. It's just, sometimes it's just really hard to believe how much in our own way we can be. And it's for me personally, it's like, I just will go out and do it. I mean, I have done any and everything things. People are like, are you crazy? You did what? You were hanging off the side of a mountain. Yes. But those things, they were just like, okay, but it wasn't really for me. So it was easier to do because it wasn't for me. Wow. Whoa.
Yeah, I'm letting you process that.
Wow. Right. Okay.
Yeah, because here's the thing, like we discount ourselves and the benefits to us as though those benefits are somehow worth less because they've got our name attached to them and everybody else is more important. That fucking martyr shit has got to go.
I never looked at it as martyrdom, but my generation, and we were raised that you, especially the women, you take care of things, take care of everybody, and then you take care of yourself. And I have spent my entire life doing that. And the only time I'm not doing that is when I am on that motorcycle. So what I want is to be able to create the environment that I can feel like I'm on that bike and free as a bird. That's the feeling that I want when I pick up my camera, just to keep creating something new for myself. And because I was getting bored.
Yeah. So Donnamaria, what is next for you? You've evolved your mission statement for your life to create. You're allowing yourself to create. The good girl shit is for the birds. And what's happening?
My style of shooting, it's evolving. There's some things that I've been photographing that are not up yet because I'm ready to share. But that's coming. And
I'm excited for that. Yes, please.
And I'm challenging myself to be more receptive to having other artists around me in a defined space and time. I've talked to a few people. I'm going to have a salon here at the studio right now. So I don't have a sculptor, but I have a potter. I have different kinds of photographers. I have someone who shoots medium format, someone who shoots large format, and I have a painter. And so I'm putting that together just so that we can just talk about art. That's it. Just talk about art. Working on some collaborations with the Smithsonian.
What?
Just
haphazardly, just working on a collaboration with the Smithsonian.
I'm just in conversations with them about, I would love to see my work in the Smithsonian, but I want a closer relationship with them as far as the exhibits that go up and the curation and things like that for the minority population, whether it's women, African Americans, Hispanic, it doesn't matter. But so just in conversations with them. I have a draping class that I'm teaching at Glen Echo and PhotoWorks in Glen Echo. So there's just other things. I just wanted to be able to create on whatever level I feel like it. Pretty
Absolutely.
much. Yeah.
Did I ever, speaking of curating art, I'm going to share a story I haven't shared on the podcast yet. And a buddy of mine and I, we used to paint together. So like we'd sort of collaborate on paintings. We would get big canvases and like he would start a painting and then pass it off to me and vice versa. And one of his roommates worked out on Longboat Key and he was a maintenance supervisor for like a condominium complex. And because it's Longboat Key, the 85% of the people who live on Longboat, it's their end of life. So he was responsible for clearing out the units after somebody would pass away and the families would come and take whatever from the estate. And then anything left, he would dispose of somehow. And he called me up and he was like, "Hey, Kat, are you and Dan, are you working on anything right now?" And I was like, "No, I don't think so. And I'm getting ready to move." And he was like, No. Like, I've got this huge canvas and it's like 6 feet tall. And I was like, "Okay, I'm listening." And he's like, "This thing is god awful ugly. You guys could totally like use it as a project." So we take a look at it and this thing is like, color palette is just woof. And so I take it with me, put it in a U-Haul, take it to Boston. And it sat against a wall in my super tiny little apartment. And I would sit there and just drink wine and stare at it and be like, "Man, I don't know if I can paint over anybody else's work. I just don't know if I can do." And like, it took like a couple of months of me just sitting there with wine, staring at it. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to do it. Screw it. And so I started to prime over it. I got like, maybe halfway down with the primer. And now it's Christmas time and I'm down on Comm Ave in like a poster print store. And I'm looking through art prints for replication. And all of a sudden I start seeing this painting and I'm like, I'm like hyperventilating, having a panic attack in the store. Like, oh my God. What have I done? What have I done? What have I done? What have I done? And then I start researching, right? And this is still like pretty early days of the internet. And the last 2 pieces from this artist that had been certified without a signature, because it wasn't signed, but that had been certified without a signature for this artist, had sold at auction with Sotheby's for $11 million a piece.
Oh boy.
Mm-hmm. And it wasn't like I was seeing other versions of the style, but like I was also seeing the painting that was sitting in my house.
Right.
And so I start calling around to like the MFA. I'm like, okay, I'm super broke college student. Like, this is what I think I have. Can we talk about restoration and what that would cost? And of course, it was like, thousands of dollars. And at the time, like that might as well have been 10 million. And then my house burned down. So that's gone now.
Oh my
But
goodness.
it was a Marcus Rothko piece.
Okay. You know what?
So tell the Smithsonian I said hello.
I don't even know what to say to that because I don't know. I don't know if my teardrops could handle all the crying I would have been doing.
Oh my God. Well, and I just, think back to, because that went through an apartment and then a 2-family home that I lived in Arlington. And that's the house that caught fire. And it caught fire at like 2 a.m. So my downstairs neighbors and my 40,000 roommates and I were all standing outside, like trying to hold on to animals in like half pajamas. Oh. I went through the house with the fire marshal after everything was cleared so he could kind of walk through and show me like, this is safe, this is not safe, you need to get your stuff and go. The frame for it was still relatively intact, but the canvas, of course, was gone. And I just remember, and I'm standing there and I have like a red and yellow and blue plaid flannel on over like red satin pajama pants and a pair of like Doc Marten boots. And I'm just standing there in the attic staring at this frame, and the fire marshal is just like, da, 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 da. And he turns around and he looks at me and I'm just like, sorry. And he's like, are you okay? And I was like, no, I'm not okay.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's terrible. That's beyond terrible.
It's beyond terrible. But at the same time, it's also one of those life lessons of no matter what you create, no matter what anybody says anything about it, it's valuable to someone. And that's one of the things about graffiti art that kind of drives me crazy is like, yes, you're adding to a mural and a collage, but to completely paint over anything is just heartbreaking because that was somebody else's heart that you determined was invalid. Right. Yeah. And I think that's true for any creator. It doesn't matter what you're creating, and everything matters about what you're creating because you're communicating with the universe. Not just the world around you, not just the people around you, but with the universe, you are creating something out of nothing.
Yeah. I mean, and when you create something, it's the only of its kind because it was made by you. Even if you're replicating something else, it was created by you. I mean, we literally make stuff out of nothing.
Out of nothing.
Out of nothing. And so yeah, that's kind of what I have going on moving forward. There's only one other thing, and I just really want to mentor the children and get them, find those that are really interested in photography and start talking to them while they're really young.
Mm-hmm. I love that.
Because they can learn the craft, but I want them to not have to learn the way I did about the business side. Now, while I'm saying that, we all learn things from experience. Mm-hmm. Some things are best learned by being taught, and some things are best learned from experience. I think oftentimes children are not allowed the space to discover that thing for them. And I just want to give them the space. And for lots of different reasons, but I want to give them the space.
Well, there is something to be said about the wonderment of a child. Like I remember, those like paint sets where it's like, here's a bunch of little teeny acrylics and little teeny oils and little teeny charcoals, like in a suitcase. And I often refer to that Christmas as like the wonderment of childhood Christmas, because I got it with like basically a pad of little canvas sheets. Mm-hmm. And I sat there and I painted a rainbow, like from one corner, like in a gradient down to the other corner. And I used every single color. And I just got lost in it for, I don't know, maybe an hour, hour and a half, just covering this page. And I was just mesmerized. And my mom came over and like not meaning anything by it, right? She wasn't being mean. She's like, oh, but Catherine, you're not supposed to mix the mediums. And I looked at her and was just like, oh. Right. And then when I was singing and studying opera, there was a piece that I was really moved by that I really wanted to sing. And this was in like my first or second year of training. And unbeknownst to me, it was a really complicated piece. But my voice teacher was like, all right, let's get it. Right. And it's probably like my flagship piece out of everything that I sang. But I remember she said later on, like, that was far too advanced for you at that age, but because you were so in love with it. And that's the way I look at that wonderment piece, right? Like, I don't care how advanced it is, right? And the same is true for children who are wanting to explore photography. Pick up the camera. Don't worry about ISO and aperture and all of the things. Just create.
Yes.
And then check it out. Right. I think that's one of the great things about film is like it makes you wait.
Oh,
right?
Let me tell you. Yes, it does make you wait. And that's one of the things that I've been doing more of since Italy last year is film. When Matthew lost his dad and was talking about documenting your parents' life. And because my mother lives with me, it's easier to do. I pulled out my first camera, which is a Pentax K1000.
Me too.
Yeah. And I photograph her regularly. And I have not developed any of those rolls. Or I think I'm up to maybe about 12 rolls now. But I don't want to send them off. I want to do them myself because I have access to a darkroom now that I'm faculty of at PhotoWorks. And so I've been documenting her daily life. But in doing that, I realized that, okay, you have to slow down and pay attention to what you're doing when you're using film. And so I took it a step further and I brought my 4x5 out. Now you really have to slow down. So I've been shooting 4x5 sheet film, and that's part of something that's happening.
Yeah. Oh man. I gotta come to Maryland. This is
exciting. Yeah. Well, I mean, come on. But yeah, so I've been loving that because it forces me to not only slow down, but be intentional, because all you have to do is not do one thing and you've just ruined a sheet of film. And while it's not super expensive, it's not cheap. It's not like a digital file that you can just hit delete. Yeah. So I tell people I am going backwards to move forward now. So I'm going back to film to move forward in my passion for photography. That's what I'm doing.
I love it. Oh my gosh, Donnamaria, thank you so much for being on this episode with me. I just love you so much.
Thank you for having me. Love you much. This was fun. This was a lot of fun.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.